Bet your lunch break isn't weird like mine. Quid pro quo? I tell you mine, you tell me yours? Deal. Okay, so today I'm on the subway to the main train station because that's the nearest post office, my place. I need to post a book for Eric Winter to Canada. So one thing I've noticed about Hamburg is people here spit on the ground all the time. And these aren't hobos or little brats or people that you would assume just tend to spit when they want to, but regular citizens. Like at the main train station, there's this one girl wearing a fairly expensive looking dress, kind of shortish. You know, she smiles at me and then she just hawks, whoop, just right between her Gucci shoes. Why? Why do people have to do that? I don't know. But they do. All the time. So I'm walking through the classical notes at the main train station. The main train station in Hamburg, for some reason, on the periphery of it plays classical music. I think it was Mozart actually at the time. And this is to keep away the junkies. I don't know how that works. I guess it's kind of like a whistle for a dog, but it does work. There are very surprisingly few junkies around, whereas Cologne has like has to put up security guards on the periphery, you know, to chase them away. Hamburg doesn't have any, just because of the classical music. Well, anyway, so I'm at the post office. By the way, postage to Canada, not cheap. Might have been cheaper to actually buy the book on Amazon Canada directly by credit card, but you know, it's not the same. I wouldn't have, you know, whatever. I was glad to post it. That's cool. So I'm grabbing a bite to eat. Was in the mood for some dead animal, particularly chicken, but you know, I went to KFC anyway. So I got like a double chicken burger menu. Sat down, way too much for me. And you know, as I'm eating, there's this beggar, you know, asking for money. Now, I'm not fond of giving money to beggars because you never know what they're going to do with it. You know, are they going to buy more alcohol or drugs or Marvel comics or a prostitute? You never know, you know? So instead I offered him my second burger. And usually, beggars in Hamburg can be a little arrogant. I've seen them turn change down because they thought the amount was too little. You know, it's kind of, yeah, you have to keep a certain class, you know. It's just gotta keep in mind the competition. You can't go below your usual begging prices, you know. You gotta conserve your brand right there. So anyway, but this beggar was actually happy enough to take my burger. I've had food turned down before too. So, and just, you know, I was kind of in a strange mood, wanted to weird him out a bit, so I actually thanked him. I said, thank you, sir. You prevented me from eating too much food because I'm trying not to gain any more weight. But instead of being stunned or flabbergasted or at least speechless, he's like, yeah, no problem, glad to help out. You know what? Have a beer. So he gives me a bottle of beer for my burger from his endless supply of plastic bags, which weirded me out. More so because it's the weirdest beer I've ever seen. It's a Beck's, but it's called Beck's Ice, Lime, and Mint. Oh God, if my friends from the Czech Republic see this, oh, I'm going to be ruined. Oh, Eric, not only do we have the sexier women, but now we also have better beer than you do. Actually, it's not half bad for summer. So anyway, so I want to get back to my workplace. I'm back on the tube with like a gazillion other assholes, and the thing isn't leaving the train station. And you know what happens to a subway that doesn't leave the station? It gets full. Because you always have people like every minute coming in, just they don't have a certain schedule, they just try to catch the nearest tube that's there. And they all enter, and the fucking thing just doesn't close its doors and leave. So after like 10 minutes, you realize there's really no more room in this thing. And that's when they finally decide to make an announcement. And you know how those tube announcements are. It's like, Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Hamburg Traffic Company speaking to you with an important announcement. We sincerely apologize for any delay. Yeah, so I don't know what happened, but this train wasn't leaving the station. So I got out, had to call work, because I had to go on foot, really. It wasn't too bad, actually. It's only about 10-15 minutes off, and it was quite a nice day out. So I noticed this girl who was standing next to me in the car. She also got out. Other people actually stayed in the train car that wouldn't leave the station. I don't know why. It wasn't one of those freeze actions, they were just standing there moving. Well, anyway, so as what binds strangers together except like a common mishap? So say something like poor service in restaurant. You get into a conversation with strangers at the next table. Bad weather, if it's raining, you can always talk about that. Or if public transport fails, you're always annoyed by that. So I get into a conversation. She apparently has the same way back as I do. And she's kind of cute. But I do notice one thing. Her arms, they're all cut up. Like they've got like little incisions all over. There must be at least 50 cuts on every arm. So weird. And burns too, It's like nothing. This isn't gonna go away with an excuse of, I fell down the stairs, the only excuse for this would have been, I accidentally, instead of taking the beginner's pool at the local swimming pool, I inadvertently jumped into the pool filled with sharp razor blades. That, I would have accepted that as an excuse, but I don't know why that's, it's so weird, really. But we get into nice enough conversations about, the new Windows Vista and all the implications about the Windows version after that that's going to come after that is sort of similar to the software that we know from the iPhone, blah, 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 blah. Turns out she works for IBM, which I didn't know girls worked for IBM, but okay, fair enough. And she's corporate, just like before her building is like a little before mine, so she like takes a left. Before that, she puts on like an expensive looking suit and whatever. She looks pretty regular because it was long sleeved and it covered all her scars, which just freaked me out, man. She'll just go back there. She's probably like a manager or something. Anyway, just as we were about to split up, we find out why those trains weren't leaving the station. Because above our train station, there's a fire. Smoke reeks like hell. Some plastic must have burned. And we look up and we look at each other, two strangers, common mishap, whatever. And just before I can say goodbye, it was just so classic. I could not have made this up better. She throws back her head and just like spits at her feet and then says it was nice to meet you. What the fuck? So how was your lunch break?